When I was coming up, one of the most common narratives and what we would often hear is that our dreams are just figment of our imaginations, or that dreams are just random firing going off in the brain during the sleep state. And what I'm about to share with you are some revelations that you can draw from your own dream state, because most of us humans do dream, right? You can draw from your own experiences that there's far more to dreams than what we've been taught. We just have not yet learned to understand, understand, or ultrastand what dreams are about and how to decode them and what they mean when we are having them. Now, there are different kinds of dreams. When I was coming up, because I hated school, when I would be in the classroom, I would often daydream. If I'm not daydreaming, I'm doodling, because that's just how much I hated school. So when I'm daydreaming, that's when, I'm fully conscious and I'm in my mind visualizing things, because being a creative person, I'm always visualizing a way to express myself as an artist. Or I'm drawing from a memory of a pleasant time, or visualizing somewhere where I would prefer to be other than in a room being indoctrinated. But anyway, so that's a kind of dream. That's a very interesting kind of dream. Of course, when we go unconscious, meaning go to sleep, that is the closest state of death without actually dying, the sleep state. Now, just as there are levels to astral projection, there are levels to sleep. Now, we've been taught about the beta state, the theta state, all these scientific terms. I'm not really going to get into those right now, but there are different tiers to which we access the sleep realm. There's a realm that is very, very close to the full wake state, and some of you guys may have experienced this, where you are in between the sleep state, but you're still consciously aware of being in the physical realm, to the point where you could hear people talking, and you could, if the TV is on, you could hear the TV or whatever is going on around you, or if music is playing. How many of you guys have been in that state and you notice how the mind would try to create images based on what you're hearing? Now, in that case, I could say that that is an influence of the brain, because the brain is taking sound waves and vibrations that it has been programmed to associate with certain images and trying to make sense of it from this perspective. So in that case, yes, I could, and I would agree with the scientific community that this is a form of the random firing off of the brain during the dream state. The brain is trying to make sense of the input that it's getting, and we are observing that. But then there's that other realm of sleep where we are totally disconnected from this world. We're not thinking about this world. It doesn't exist from that perspective. That's when we start literally switching our consciousness and mind to another, that vehicle or vessel to express and experience from. This is the difference between an astral projection and lucid dream. It's just the fabric, the vibratory layer and molecules to which, or vehicle to which, we are perceiving and experiencing from. When we are in the astral mode, we are on what we would call the astral realm. The realm that is basically held together by stardust and some other impurities that I'm not going to really get into, which is why it can be a positive and negative type of experience. But the same is true for the dream state. In a dream state, you have a different kind of vehicle. I'll just call it, for sake of this video, the dream body. So you have a dream vehicle, which is, like they've always demonstrated to us in the movies, being clouds and gases. That's more of the vehicle or interface with the dream world. And then there's the ethereal world, and then there's the spirit world. People call it sphere, but I call it sphere world. Y'all know how I like to play on words. So when we go into the dream state, there are different levels and tiers to it. The further we go out, but without having mastered the mind matrix, the more likely we're going to forget our dream. Let's take a quick moment to talk about one of the most least understood but yet common forms of sleeping, and that is called the REM. REM stands for rapid eye movement. REM is often associated with a behavior disorder, meaning people who would go into this state and they would get up and act out their dream. According to an article from WebMD.com, normal sleep has two distinct states: non-rapid eye movement, NREM, and rapid eye movement, REM sleep. NREM sleep is divided into 4 stages. During REM sleep, rapid eye movements occur, breathing becomes irregular, blood pressure rises, and there's a loss of muscle tone, paralysis. However, the brain is highly active, and the electrical activity recorded in the brain by EEG during REM sleep is similar to that recorded during wakefulness. REM sleep is usually associated with dreaming. REM sleep accounts for 20% to 25% of the sleep period. In a person with REM sleep behavior disorder, RBD, the paralysis that normally occurs during REM sleep is incomplete or absent, allowing the person to act out his or her dreams. RBD is characterized by the acting out of dreams that are vivid, intense, and violent. Dream enacting behaviors including talking, yelling, punching, kicking, sitting, jumping from bed, arm flailing, and grabbing. An acute form may occur during withdrawal from alcohol or sedative hypnotic drugs. Now, I wanted to talk about REM sleep because it is directly connected to some revelations that I've learned years ago. I'm going to talk about a very powerful and true story involving someone in this state of dreaming a little later in this video. Without having mastered the mind matrix, the more likely we're going to forget our dream. The same applies to the astral realm, by the way, because a lot of people are having astral projection experiences, but they don't have the momentum or the energy to bring forth the information stream to recall it. The same would be true for the dream state. When we are in the dream state, when we totally disconnect from this world and we are no longer focused on this realm, on those dream states, do we not still see buildings and people and everything that we see here? And for those of us who are more developmentally advanced, it's not a put down on everyone else, but everyone is vibrating on different levels. But for those of us who are more developmentally advanced, we're going to see things and interface with things that we don't see on the physical realm. But on the dream realm, you see people, places, and things that are here. And in those dream states, we feel and interact with one another just as real as we're here. So those of us who say, oh, you know, when the body dies, that's it, you don't have a nervous system to feel, you don't have a brain, and that is very true. But when you keep in mind, pun intended, that everything is mind. Mind is, yeah, we have a mind particle that merges with each vessel when we shift our consciousness, but the mind, we are within a greater mind. So it is the mind, the brain, and physical reality that we see is still in the mind, just as the dream is. So if and when the physical body perceiving from the physical realm ceases to be. You simply shift to your mind and your consciousness to a different vessel, meaning we are multidimensionals. There are more layers to us than we can see with the naked eye. And on that realm, though it's invisible from its perspective, will be highly visible when our consciousness shift through the perspective of that vessel and all the interacting vessels and bubbles that are interfacing with it. It will feel just as real and just as physical as we are sitting here. Now, some of you guys have talked about seeing me in your dream state, and yes, we do come into certain people's dreams as you guys have come into ours. Most people do this unconsciously. The movie Inception did a really good scene on this.
They say we only use a fraction of our brain's true potential. Now, that's when we're awake. When we're asleep, our mind can do almost anything.
Such as?
Well, imagine you're designing a building, right? You consciously create each aspect. But sometimes it feels like it's almost creating itself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like I'm discovering it.
Genuine inspiration, right? Now, in a dream, our mind continuously does this. We create and perceive our world simultaneously, and our mind does this so well that we don't even know what's happening. That allows us to get right in the middle of that process.
How?
By taking over the creating part. Now, this is where I need you. You create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their subconscious.
How could I ever acquire enough detail to make them think that it's reality?
Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange. Let me ask you a question. You never really remember the beginning of a dream, do you? You always wind up right in the middle of what's going on.
I guess, yeah.
So how did we end up here?
Well, we just came from the,
Think about it, Ariadne. How did you get here? Where are you right now?
We're dreaming?
You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, sleeping. This is your first lesson in shared dreaming. Stay calm. Just a dream, is it? And a face full of glass hurts like hell. When you're in it, it feels real.
That's why the military developed dream sharing. It was a training program for soldiers to shoot and stab and strangle each other and then wake up.
How did architects become involved?
Someone had to design the dreams, right? Why don't you give us another 5 minutes?
5 minutes? What? We were talking for like at least an hour.
That dream, they are showing us that most of us, we move off into the dream state just an autopilot. We're not thinking. We're not even aware of a beginning, middle, of an end. We're just there. That is until someone like us come in and make you aware that you're dreaming. Now, why is this important? This is important because just as I'm sitting here trying to remind us all of our multi-dimensional capabilities and who and what we are, we do the same thing in the dream state. And when you become conscious on each of those realms, you begin to take control of your mind. Because what did I say a long time ago? When we are not in control of our mind matrix, someone or something else will be. That's just the way it is. And they are able to do that by through our ignorance. Willful unconscious consent is how this is being done. But let me pull it back in, because there's so many layers to this, y'all. So some of you guys have talked about seeing me in your dream, and yes, I do, because my work does not just stop here. I have had dreams telling you guys, just as I'm sitting here, y'all know this is a dream. There was a lucid dream that I had where key holders of a specific energy field, we were all sitting having like a meal together, and I knew that most were just in autopilot mode. They were not consciously aware that they were in the dream state. And we were eating, and then I was sitting at the head of the table, and I said, you guys, you know we're in a dream, right? You know this is a dream. There's one particular young lady who was sitting right here to my my left hand side, and she's still she's one of my friends on Facebook, by the way, and she sends me messages here and there, but she never mentioned having seen me in a dream. But maybe now she will feel comfortable saying so. But anyway, so I remember looking towards her, and she said, wow, and she got it, and she was like, you're right, we are in a dream. Then the other guys began to get it. Now this is something that happened about 6 years ago. So I'm kind of getting you guys caught up on some revelations that I didn't share in the past, but the time to share these things is just right. So anyway, so she was like, wow, you're right, we're in a dream, and she got it. And what I noticed with this young lady is such a massive growth. She was someone who was dealing with her weight and so on and so forth. And when she began to master and become conscious of her subconscious state of awareness, again, that's when we began to trickle down that awareness and began to master the mind and take control of our lives. It's all connected. Now, there's so many other things, so many other examples I can give about dreams. Some of you guys have written me, you told me that you saw me in a dream before you even saw a YouTube video, and it's something and you turned on. Some of you guys know your dream is more than just some random thing, because how many of us have seen people in our dreams and then 3-4 days later we actually meet these people in physical life? How many couples out there have slept in the same bed, or family members who have shared and slept in the same space, and you guys wake up and you share having the exact same dream? If these are just random thoughts going off in the mind, how is that possible? Not only is it not possible for the examples that I've given you to be the result of just some random firing off in the brain, what about all these other types of dreams? Let's not forget prophetic dreams, ancestral dreams, otherworldly dreams, meaning seeing things that we don't see here in physical life. What about all of those catalytic dreams that spawns innovative ideas, inventions, revolutions, solution, resolutions? And even still, when we are in pitch darkness in our sleep state, where is all of that light coming from when we're in a dream state? Because if you're not getting light coming through the eyes and being exposed to the brain, then those very vivid, real, illuminated realms, that light can't possibly be in the brain if there's no light getting to the brain. So again, this is more evidence and more proof that we are literally switched to another dial, and that light that we see sometimes is coming from the inner sun within. That's a clue, right? It is a clue. Or that inner light within. And sometimes it's a collective of different beings who bring their light and share in this collective world. But again, you're not really here in the physical body, although the brain is observing, because your energy stream is connected to this physical vessel. So when we go in the astral realm or in the dream state, all of our consciousness and all of our soul or spirit or whatever you want to call it has not left, or it's not leaving the body. There are fragments of it that is shifted to another vibratory vessel, plane of consciousness and existence. Here is again the basic nature of reality revealed. I want to share with you a story about dreams, about a dream. I got so many. But my youngest nephew, now, people who know me, they know I love my family. I am very close to my family. I'm very hands-on. My closest family members, and even all of my extended family, we come together. We are very, very supportive of one another, especially when there's family crisis. So we are very big on family. But with my sister and my niece and nephews, I'm very hands-on. I'm with them about 90% of the time when I'm not working. And when they're in trouble and they're in distress, naturally, as someone who believes and lives the African proverb that it takes a village, I know that I am going to step in and do whatever I can to help the situation. So my youngest nephew was born by way of a C-section. Now, mind you, when my nephew was born, my sister didn't have any complications, any life-threatening. There was nothing life-threatening going on. They basically just told her, well, you know, you're getting a little big and we can't really map when you conceive, so we're going to just set a date for you to come in and get a C-section. We'll take the baby for both you and the child's safety. In a roundabout way, I'm just kind of explaining this simplified. It was more layered to this, more layered than this. So my sister just went on along, and my nephew, I intuitively feel, was taken about a month and 2 days sooner than he was ready to come in. So when this happened, his mind and consciousness was unable to sync with his physical vessel in the way that it would have had they allowed us, because we decide, we're supposed to decide when we come in. That's when the mother organically goes into birth. But when we have, when we're being misled and miseducated, not knowing these things, and you take a baby before they come and you take them unnaturally, it creates problem for the psyche of the consciousness and the soul and the being who is coming in. So right away, my nephew, I noticed, of course the phone is ringing. I forgot to turn it off. Anyway, let me try to just talk over this. I noticed right away my nephew was extremely colicky, meaning he cried all the time. But it wasn't just crying. It was as if he was in great distress. And he would often keep my sister up. Now, back then, I was holding down a regular 9-to-5 and doing all these side gigs. So I wasn't around them as much as then as I am now. But back then, every time I would visit them or they would visit me, my nephew would just cry all the time as if he's in distress. And it would get worse when he would be in the sleep state. He would just wake up as if something is terrifying him. And my poor sister used to be so stressed out, having to get up 4 o'clock in the morning and go to work. It was just a lot on her. So over the years, I remember telling my sisters, something is off and I'm going to figure out what it is. I remember holding my nephew on my lap and he would be so out of it. I mean, literally, he would just be sitting there with his eyes open, no response. Now, this is a baby, not laughing, not blinking, not responding to anything. He would literally just sit, and if you turn him to try to get him to move his eyes around, he would just, like a zombie. Now, of course, now I look back, this was the result of trauma, psychological trauma, on top of his inability to sync his energy stream with the vessel, with his vessel. So, off and on, let me go back. My sister tried to go and find out what was wrong. The doctors were, oh, you know, this is normal, or, you know, just keep an eye, we'll keep an eye on it. They could never really find what was wrong or what was going on. And of course, they are not going to find what's going on because this is outside of their realm of understanding, let alone expertise. So my nephew, as he got older, he would have these nightmares off and on, and he would literally get up and act them out. He would get up and he would be crying and he would be, Mom.
What you're seeing here is Jackson having a night terror. It's not a nightmare, but a night terror. You'll have to look up a little bit. But he does this almost every night, and he'll call out my name, and sometimes he'll answer me, but 9 times out of 10, he's just screaming and crying, extremely sweaty, his heart's racing and everything.
It'll be like he's looking for his mother, like he's lost. And when we would get him and try to comfort him, he'll be, no, Mommy, let me go, let me go. And when we would calm him down and get him to come through, he would go back to a normal child, and he wouldn't know or have no memory of what had just happened. That's one kind of dream. Then the other dream he would have when he had these nightmares again, he would act them out. So he would be physically here acting out in the physical body, but his mind and perception is on another plane of existence. So he would get up and leave me alone. And he would be just really, really stressed out, just really out of it. And he would be crying like he's fighting at something, like something is attacking him. Now I'm really into full guardian mode. And then seeing, how it was stressing and causing distress for my sister, and knowing how there are spirits and beings who feed off of that, especially with children. They feed off of when children are in a heightened state of trauma and fear. So now I am more aware of our multidimensional capabilities. I have more experience and so on and so forth. And so I set the intent that I am going to shift. And I told my sister this. I said, I'm going to figure out what's going on here. And sure enough, I went. I saw exactly the 2 states he would find himself locked on. There was one plane where it's like infinite. It's like an endless desert. And there are these tornadoes, just these dark tornadoes all around. He was there with another little boy who I feel had transitioned over. This little boy seemed to be okay with where he is. My nephew and he were playmates on this realm, but when the little boy would leave and move on, my nephew is there, and because he was traumatized as a child, he was unable to shift his consciousness at will in a way that a lot of us who are more developed or who didn't have the kind of trauma he has had coming in would have been able to do with no problem. So there would be this disconnect. So I saw what had happened. So what I did when I found him on the dream state, I showed him where to go. That was the first. The second time, I wanted to find out what was attacking him. I knew this was a spirit, no doubt about it. So I set the intent to pick up on his distress signal when he would be attacked by a spirit. And when that happened, now mind you, just like all of us, we have a dual layer to us. I have a cool and mild mannered side of me, but then I have that warrior, I don't play and I'm not going to take your BS side. We all have it, okay? So when that side kicked in, and I needed that side of myself to come through because you were dealing with dark, powerful forces, right? So I pick up on his distress signal that this entity was bothering him. And this is what I saw. He was in a park, and here's this entity looked like a giant owl. It was a green owl with dark, hollow eyes with rows and rows of sharp teeth. It was attacking him. It was harassing. When I came on the scene, this thing floated all the way on the other end of the park as if it was waiting for me to leave so that it come back. And what I did was, on that realm, I began to teach and show my nephew how to stand up to these things and how to not let it let them put him in a state of fear. So on that level, he became empowered. Even though he would not remember these traumatic experiences, although we can clearly see them playing them out and acting them out here on the physical plane, he could never remember them because they were so traumatizing and his psyche is already fragmented. When I began to go on the realm and teach and show him what to do and how to deal with these things, my nephew became empowered. He would even on this realm, he would want to face his fears. He used to be afraid of the lights being off, of being in darkness by himself. He, without me telling him from this perspective, wanted to face his fears. He would say, leave the light off. I'm going to face my fears. Or he'll say, I wouldn't mind seeing a movie with something scary in it because I want to face my fear. I'm not going to let fear bother me. I'm not going to let fear get me down. He learned that from me. I taught him that on the on the dream plane, on it subconsciously. Because remember, our subconscious mind is really creating the world that we see here and beyond. That's the greater truth that many of us still are not quite tapping into and quite understanding or understanding. So do you know, since I've done that, my nephew has not had one attack, one nightmare since. That was 4 years ago. My nephew is not afraid of the dark. He's not even afraid of watching scary movies. If someone would have put it in front of him, he faced his fear and he overcame. And here is a full circle moment of why I am sharing this story, why I'm giving all these different layers. Because again, once we master the different layers of ourselves from a mind perspective, it spills over into physical life. Based on what I have experienced and what I have learned and explored, I would like to give my definition of what dreams are, what the dream state is. Dream states are our respective mind fields functioning to express, learn, build, create, explore, decompress, extend our conscious defragging abilities, master interdimensional energies, interface with others, ancestral, celestial, or otherwise, minus the extreme limitations of dense physical life. And speaking of life, even dense physical life is a form of dream. Remember row, row, row your boat? But instead of dreaming in lesser dense forms of expressions that we enter during the sleep state, which are really semi-deaths for the physical vessel, this dream, or nightmare for some, called life, is a much slower vibratory layer in contrast to all others. If any of you guys have ever had a false awakening, and that means totally feeling and perceiving that you are fully up and awake in physical life, you would instantly know that this life is definitely a form of dream. Since 2009, I, as well as many others, have been talking about the Great Awakening, the great shift in consciousness. We talked about the incremental process that is involved with this great shift. And if we were to go back 10 years ago to where we are now, the world has radically changed in a very short amount of time. This shift in collective consciousness is the spearhead reason behind all of this. There are other names that people are labeling this massive shift. There are all kinds of terminologies and words out there to define the moment to which we are experiencing. People are now calling it the great event. No matter what we call it, we can clearly see, and many of us are feeling that something is really going on. This is very real. It's very evident. And so, with respects to dreams, since this is what we're talking about, just as I've hinted before, there are those who are having nightmares in physical life, those of us who are losing or have lost our way. But then we have those of us who are becoming elevated and one with this shift in consciousness. And when this happens, our mind begins to expand. Our energy goes up in frequency and vibration. And we begin to see the world for what it is, not what we are being plugged into and told and programmed to see it as. Many of you are talking about having dreams of being someone else, somewhere else. Some of you guys are having dreams where you see yourself as kings and gods and beings with supernatural abilities on other worlds. You having dreams of interacting with ancestors that doesn't necessarily look like anyone you've ever seen in this physical life, but you know these are ancestors. This is all of these timelines and different modes of expressions in terms of dreams coming to a cumulative point. And those of us who have expanded our consciousness and put in the work, we will absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, have more dreams that will reveal to the self, you, who and what you are, and the greatness that dwells within. All right, y'all, so that's it. I'm going to bring this one to a close. You are loved beyond measure. Continue to question, grow, and learn.